GHRT Rewinds are brought to you by Laughlin and Wolfington Realty. Mike and Nate and Harrison teaming up to help you sell your home faster and for top dollar.
George, this morning I printed out for you and myself a copy of the news release that came from Tammy Lacher Scully. Now, we've talked with her about her son Graham, who's been missing now since last June. It was in our newscast just a moment ago, but there's more to what the family is doing in their continued search and hopes for a successful family reunion. Tammy is in Belfast this morning, and she's on line 3 to talk with us this morning on GHRT, Mr. Hale.
Thank you. Good morning, Tammy. Again, I've seen you active recently, TV newscasts and so forth. You're still busy at it, trying to find your son. I guess the headline that I was reading this week basically was that the reward amount has been upped a little bit anyway, from $2,500 to $3,500. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Sure. Well, we initiated the reward because it was hoped that someone who might have seen Graham would be motivated to provide information. And we had the $2,500 reward in place for quite a while. It expired. It was generated through a GoFundMe campaign. The $3,500 one, is provided just by family, mostly, and friends, and there won't be any expiration on that's dictated by anybody else. We've set the date 6 months hence, but if anyone knows anything about Graham's whereabouts, please contact law enforcement. In order to collect the reward, you have to give your information to law enforcement. And we just hope that it generates more notice of our situation and that it brings somebody forward with real information.
Our discussions with you have made us very familiar with your son, even as we've never met him. But for those that don't know, please tell our audience about your son, what maybe caused him to bolt from Dorothea Dix that day in early June, and some of the complications that exist in trying to bring him back home.
Okay, sure. Well, Graham is diagnosed both autistic and schizophrenic. It means that he is both non-social, means he doesn't want to interact with people, and also paranoid about people wanting to do him harm. So he will avoid people for 2 reasons there based on his diagnosis. And he bolted from the psychiatric hospital, we believe, because he was urged to do so by an inner voice that said, go. And we found a reference to something like that in his journal writings a couple of days before he bolted. It said something like, be ready to go when they tell you the time is right. And he had said a similar thing an earlier time when he ran away from the group home that he was living in. At that point, he said he left because he'd received an unofficial summons from the netherworld, or the nether realm, I think he said. So, I think it's important for the public to know that this was not a planned escape from a facility where he wasn't happy. It was the result of psychosis. As far as we know, Graham has always appreciated the help and care that he received at Dorothea Dix Psychiatric Center. And those same 2 conditions make it difficult to know where he is because there wasn't any planning involved. He had no resources with him, no ID, no money, no cards, nothing like that. And because he avoids contact with people, he isn't likely to go to the places that, most people would expect him to congregate with other people, to meet up with a friend, to make a new friend, things like that. Not likely. So it's been very challenging.
You haven't had a confirmed sighting. I had the thought this past weekend when I saw you on TV, and it occurred to me, with the horrible weather we had the last weekend, you'd almost hope in a way that he did get out of state. Is there any, I know a silver alert is out for him here in Maine. Doesn't necessarily carry to other states, but you're operating here with some really difficult weather circumstances.
I'm with you on that, George, honestly, because we've looked pretty hard for him in Maine. We still encounter people who don't know he's missing, and so it's possible he's tucked away in some pocket of Maine where people don't recognize him and know that he's missing, even think to contact anyone about him. But I have thought in some ways the best scenario is that he did cross a state line and is being well cared for somewhere in a shelter for someone, like him. So the problem is that the Maine Silver Alert does not go out of state. It is not sent routinely to anyone outside the state of Maine. And so if he did, say, just cross over the line into New Hampshire, there's no one in New Hampshire looking for him. So that's a challenge that we're trying to compensate for by gathering fax numbers and email addresses of police departments along the I-95 corridor. And we just picked that to start with because if he did accept a ride with a trucker or some other way got a ride out of state or really just over this time has wandered that way and out of state, we just needed a place to start with. So we're starting with the I-95 corridor, the closest states, and we're just going to try to get the word out as if the Silver Alert did go beyond Maine's boundaries.
This is Tammy Lacher Scully. She's in Belfast. You're hearing her on Augusta, Waterville's news talk station, VOM, as we get an update on the search for her son, Graham Lacher. The increase in the reward, as George alluded to $3,500 for a successful reunion, and now expanding the search for out of state. George said something just a moment ago. It's triggered to me, and some listeners might be under the impression that there is or hasn't been a successful sighting. I know that we found his, I know that we found his hat. But, Tammy, has there been a sighting of your son, a confirmed sighting of your son?
Not even one.
Okay.
And that makes it tremendously challenging because we can't even focus on a region, a broad region, say northern Maine or southern Maine or central Maine or western or eastern Maine. We aren't able to narrow our area of interest at all. And it leaves us searching not only the entire state, but now outside of the state. And we believe he was seen. It only makes sense that he was seen. And as I've said before on your show, despite lots of people being out in the woods, both as various search efforts, not just for Graham, but every time there is a search effort, they're looking in areas where Graham might be. We haven't found him. Hunters haven't come across him, and we also have not found remains. So we're hopeful that Graham is surviving. We're just concerned about the level of that. How well is he surviving? Has he just been lucky? Is somebody helping him? Those are the things that drive us to continue looking.
I'm interested in a way with this business of painting his name on rocks. I guess that's where I saw that on TV I mentioned. Putting some painted rocks in areas where he might have been or might occur to him to go?
Yeah, we got that idea from a follower of the Missing Graham Lacher page. Several months ago, we started it in the summer with signs that we had stapled to stakes and placed around the tree, within the tree line around the area in Bangor where he first disappeared. Those signs lasted about a month. We monitored them. They had little notebooks in them where Graham could leave a message if he wanted to. They didn't yield any results for us, but we thought it remained a good idea to try to reach out to Graham and convince him that he's not in trouble, that we just want him to be, safe and healthy, and to please come home, to call me if he wanted to come home, if we could convince him to come home. So as weather turned, we started to think of other ways that we could leave, more weatherproof things out, messages for Graham. And another supporter thought of painting on rocks. And since then, when the snow fell, we thought, well, we also should have something that doesn't have to rest on the ground. So another volunteer came up with an idea of hanging something from trees. We've actually developed something that could be hung inside or outside. Say a store owner wanted to hang it in the window of their place of business, they could do that. But they also are weatherproof so that they can also hang outside. And it's just a chance that Graham may want to come home, but because of his challenges, might not know how to make that happen. He is very good at retaining information. He knows my phone number. He knows his stepfather's phone number. We're just hoping that a message that is directed at him, encouraging him to call me, will result in him doing that. And what the message we're sending to, we started out by putting one of his paintings on the sign to catch his attention. This time, because they're painted signs and they're a little more complicated to render, we're just putting a saying on it. And it's a saying in Latin that's meaningful to Graham and probably unknown to, the majority of people. So we do feel like it's targeted right at him, at getting his attention, and hopefully encouraging him, urging him to give me a call.
As we close, can you tell us what that Latin phrase is?
I can't pronounce it, Rick, because I don't know Latin, but Graham, took Latin at Hamden Academy and was an exceptional student. But I know the message for Graham, basically, it's kind of his motto, and it is, if you want peace, you have to get strong. And so we're saying, come home, get strong. Call Tammy.
Tammy Lacher Scully in Belfast. As we continue our hopes and our search for Graham Lacher. Tammy, we'll talk to you again soon. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
This is the George Hale Ric Tyler Show. This is VOM.
GHRT Rewinds, brought to you by your hometown real estate team, Laughlin and Wolfington Realty. Thinking about selling your home? Call 629-9211 and start packing.